I'm Rob Hoon. I'm CEO of Out of the Blue Arts and Education Trust. I've worked for Out of the Blue since 1999, and Out of the Blue itself is now 30 years old. So Out of the Blue are an arts and education trust, but within that we manage quite a few buildings in Edinburgh. We own some, we lease some. Generally, we're all about finding space that we can use that is affordable for artists and people from throughout the creative industries, but also some kind of social change organisations who are looking for space in order to have offices or produce art. We tend to try and create spaces which have a relationship with the community. So in the past we've run many projects actually which look at how we can be a resource locally and how we can help generate opportunities for activity and employment and spaces for people to create. We manage buildings, we have space for studios. There's a huge demand for studio space in Edinburgh. We generally come up against the price of property in Edinburgh and try and make sure we can produce space that's affordable for people to work in. And within their buildings we have space for exhibitions so people can create and then show their work. We have spaces where they can run workshops and do educational courses, and we also have event space. We also have the Bongo Club, which is part of the Out of the Blue group, which runs as a club for live music and DJs up in the centre of Edinburgh. Our buildings that we have are focused on Leith, but not exclusively in Leith. Yeah, Out of the Blue started in 1994, and it was basically a few young people at the time came back to Edinburgh, where they were from having travelled in Europe, and they found out that despite Edinburgh being the festival city, there was very few spaces that artists could work from. So they set about doing something about it, and they were basically had a social entrepreneurial approach before such a thing existed. They went about finding a space where they could work with other people to create studio space. So after an initial couple of years in a shop front in the centre of Edinburgh, they found an old bus garage which was sitting empty in New Street, which is just up by the council, where the council headquarters is now. And they carved out space, and they did a deal with the property developer to have a couple of years in the old bus garage, and during that time they created studios and exhibition space, and the legendary Bongo Club was born there in 1996. It could have all just been a glorious experiment that could have been all over in a few years, but they really created something that drew people in. They had an educational ethos right from the start and started running projects with homeless young people and doing exchanges to different areas of the world. In fact, they went to South Africa, did an exchange with a South African township. So there was all manner of creative projects going on with an educational element, but also with a performance element. The Bongo Club, a lot of the musicians who were based at New Street ended up performing at the Bongo Club. And so it was just something which was glorious right from the start. It just created all this activity, and as I say, it could have all come to an end, but the young people had determination to make it work. They didn't have the money to make it work, and the finances were very dodgy, particularly in the early days, but we managed to get some grants together, we were trading right from the start. We were letting space to artists. We were running a club where people paid to get in, and we had a bar and a cafe. So when I started in 1999, the challenge was to find somewhere else for Out of the Blue to move to, and that was quite a challenge because, again, as I say, the Edinburgh property market makes it very difficult to find space that's usable and affordable. So we were fortunate enough to manage to get some funding together to help with that process from the Scottish Arts Council at the time, which was pretty crucial actually, that there was that acknowledgement of what we were doing was important and valuable for Edinburgh, and that for a grassroots organisation that had just grown up from people's own somewhat anarchic activity, it was pretty crucial that we managed to persuade people that we weren't going away and we were something that Edinburgh needed. We managed to do that, and as part of that process we managed to get out and look for space, and then found the Out of the Blue Drillhall, which was then an ex-army base in Leith that was being sold by the Defence Estates. We set about getting loan funding from Social Investment Scotland and Triodos Bank in order to buy the building, and the rest is history. So the drill hall, we walked through the tunnel into the drill hall. We'd never been in the building before because it was still in use as a territorial army base. We walked through and just saw this massive space with all this light and girders and spaces that were used by the army for the officers' quarters and then the cadets' quarters at the end. And we thought it's got massive potential to be converted into a space where we can run on the same kind of ethos that we were already working under and with the same kind of elements. So we could see that it would be possible to create space for studios, but also have a wide open central area where we could run exhibitions and markets and events. And one thing we didn't think of was the cubic capacity of the building, because just as soon as we were poring over the plans in 2 dimensions and how can we divide it up, but it's got also, there is great demand for people to hang off the girders and do aerial work, and that wasn't part of our business plan, but became an important part of the drill hall's everyday activity. So if we kind of move on a few years, we managed to get the finance together to buy the building, and then another few years to get the money together to refurbish the building. But that was obviously crucial to our social enterprise. We had to generate the income to enable us to pay back the loans. So we generate income from loan funding, from trading. We let space either by the hour or on a more permanent basis for people to have studios. And then from them we also run projects and create new enterprises. So we have a trading company. We didn't bring the Bongo Club to Dalmeny Street because it's a very residential area and that wouldn't have been possible. So the Bongo Club went its own way, but it's still part of the group and still running from the Cowgate now, where thousands of people come through the door every year to go to clubs and live music. But the drill hall itself, we have over 100,000 people coming through the door every year for all manner of events and markets and exhibitions, and we also run a cafe. So the cafe at the drill hall was always important because it was something that people identified that they wanted. So a space where people could come together and come out of their studios and meet other artists and devise all sorts of projects, which was always part of Out the Blue's existence. All the artists often work together and collaborate, which helps them generate an income and have a connection to like-minded people. And the cafe was always vital for that. We immediately set it up as a training project where we had local young people coming in and training, and then more importantly perhaps getting employed in the cafe. And from that the cafe also initiated its own events. So it runs the monthly flea market. It has a project to produce preserves from food that would otherwise then end up in landfill. So the drill hall is this kind of hive of activity. We have continued to look for other buildings because we have huge demand for studio space, but the drill hall remains the centre of what we're all about. 10 years ago we started a project called Out the Blueprint, and Out the Blueprint is an incredible project that's just grown over those years and has developed. And again, it runs training for young people. It has young people as artists in residence, but it provides opportunities for young people particularly to create their own art and their own zines and their own projects, and it has become a great success. So the drill hall itself is this huge building full of activity, but also, as I say, relates to the local community. We ran a project when we first moved here with some young people who were in the park, a local park, about how that should be improved, and we managed to work with them, and they managed to get funding in to develop the play park. So we have that kind of relationship with the community, and then that group came into the drill hall and started working with us and became trainees in the cafe and are still working here some 20 years on, which is quite amazing in my view. We run a project called Freeze Frame, which the cafe initiates, but it's in collaboration with the local cinema network. Film screenings throughout Edinburgh communities, Westerhouse and Craigmillar and Muirhouse, and we also take part by creating an event where we have food and films shown here. Great initiative and very popular. The last Saturday of every month we run a flea market. It's organised by a cafe here. It's been going for years. It's become an Edinburgh must, and we have over 40 stalls with all manner of collectibles from clothes and bric-a-brac, and it's very popular, but it's well worth a visit. We get people, visitors and locals alike coming along, and it's a great atmosphere. So Out the Blue has been running arts markets for the last 20 years in the Drillhall. A lot of the artists who are in Out the Blue studios get involved, but it's not exclusively Out the Blue artists, it's artists from all over Edinburgh. So every day we have different stall holders. A very popular event, great chance to come and pick up original art from paintings to jewellery, etc., etc. Well worth a visit, very popular. So our aim remains the same 30 years on from when we were born, which was to create space where artists can run their businesses if they're business people or if they're part of the creative industries, but also if they're individual artists, just have a space that they can call their own within the building. So fundamentally that is still really important for Edinburgh and for what we do. But beyond the individual space for artists, we're also looking for places where people can meet and connect and come up with projects. And our aim is still to have that kind of cross-fertilisation between what we do. So studio artists will also work on projects. They will also run workshops and classes and have courses. So we're really looking, I suppose, to support that culture of creativity within Edinburgh, but also very much aware of the economy, that we want to have space where people can earn a living. We want to support policy that is out there. So, for example, we want to be part of the 20-minute neighbourhood. We have buildings where people can come to, which are very close together, and we want to fundamentally look at the community's wealth and what we can do to support communities to survive and for people to earn a living. So our first introduction to social enterprise was probably through the banks that support it. So Triodos Bank and Social Investment Scotland were people we connected with in the early 2000s, and they'd been set up, if you like, to support social enterprise with the idea that loan funding can be part of your business plan. So in order to have loan funding, unfortunately, you have to pay it back, which most organisations in the sector were used to grants, but grant funding can be taken away from you, so it gives you a bit more flexibility to basically have a say in your own future to become financially sustainable through a combination of trading loans, but also acknowledging that what you're doing has social impact and should be supported financially through grants, but it's just getting that balance right, and that balance suited us because of where we had come from. That's the way Out the Blue was always set up. I came from the grant funding sector. I worked in Westerhouse, where obviously it was really important that these organisations were grant funding, but when I came to Out the Blue and I could see that it was a lot more effort had to go into your business planning side of things, but it as we can see, it's led to us being sustainable after 30 years, whereas a lot of organisations haven't managed to survive that long. So I'm very aware that organisations do need grant funding in order to exist, and it's really important that communities have that support, but also organisations can have a more entrepreneurial approach, and that, I think, gives you a say. You can do things yourself, you can not rely on others to exist. Basically, you work together to make things happen. I've got a feeling that a lot of people don't really understand social enterprise by the way they talk about it, because they either think it's some magic bullet. Oh, social enterprise, so you're going to generate all this money. Running a cafe is really difficult, and to make that work. But if you do have that balance of, as I say, a bit grant funding plus trading, and you can talk to people about what you're doing and why it's important, but also people are just coming in to buy your services. I think it's quite a powerful mix. Out of the Blue aim to work with a number of people and support what they're doing. So our first and main community of interest, if you like, is artists, and that can be people from across the creative industries, so the full range from companies who are film companies to theatre companies who are also working with other people, designers and painters, the whole range, jewellers. So we work to support and create space that is useful to them, but we are also wanting to support people who are trying to set up themselves up and make a living from something a wee bit creative, let's say. So that's hence Out the Blueprint, working with young people who can produce art and then sell it and earn a living, and from doing that perhaps they can work creatively and not have to work in jobs that are a bit more soul destroying. And so we try and create opportunities for employment, and that's not always just in the arts either. That can be, support people who work in our cafe to then become employees either with us or go on to other organisations, and we've done that for the last 20 years. So it's a combination of folk. We have people from the local community who've been involved in the projects that we've run, and that could be social history projects, or that could be refurbishment projects in the area. So it's a whole range of people. Sometimes it's very difficult to pigeonhole Out of the Blue into one area, and that sometimes has worked against us in terms of funding streams. But we've come up with projects that are environmentally significant, like the preserves project that we run in the cafe to rescue some food and turn it into preserves that can have a shelf life for 3 years. So it's this whole range of things that come from the folk who are involved, and we try and support their projects to make them happen and look at connections between them if possible as well. So Out of the Blue own or manage 5 buildings currently. So we have the Drillhall, which we bought in 2003. We also run the Out of the Blue Music Studios, where we rent space around the corner to the Drillhall to a number of musicians who are working to record and practice. And we are also looking at another project where we might manage to create some space for music practice, because again, it's very hard to come by in Edinburgh. We have Abbeymount Studios, where we have created a space for some 40 or 50 artists who are working in the crafts up at the top of Easter Road, where we have a lease with the council. We're trying to expand on that and get a longer lease and bring in some money to renovate the building. We have the Bongo Club, which runs in the Cowgate, which is leased from the council. We have a very temporary space in Nidri, which is part of housing development site, but we went in and operate just a very basic studio and storage space. We have a Meanwhile base down Leith Walk, which is a half a dozen containers, which again is part of a bit of land which will be developed for housing. And the latest one we are looking at is Powderhall Stables, where we're just waiting on some final building works before we enter into a long contract with the council. Again, it's part of an area which is going to change significantly with new housing being built, and it's the old stables on Broughton Road. So the support we need is firstly a recognition of what we're doing and its value to Edinburgh, either in terms of the arts but also community and enterprise. So we need the support for councils and government and other people who can offer funding to enable us to operate with a little bit of financial support. We don't need huge grants over many years. We need small grants to support our model of generating our own income, but generating our own income in a way which is very labour intensive because of the way we support people or in the way that we link with other organisations or with policy that exists. So some financial support is vital, and that, as I say, is in recognition of the value of what we do. As any business, when costs rise, we are vulnerable to that. We work in a number of sectors. We work with listed buildings where we're working to maintain them and keep them in the sphere where they're not just sold off for private profit, and also, or they're not demolished. We're working for listed buildings. So we need to be seen as custodians of listed buildings in Edinburgh, and that comes with a little bit of financial support. We've had a good relationship with funders in the heritage sector in the past, so we need to be constantly renewing that. So I would say political and funding support is still really important to us as an enterprise. Despite the fact that we're trading and we're generating income, we're still very much aware that our social impact needs political support and funding support. Collaboration's pretty vital. We're always looking to work with partners, and we're also looking for ways that we can connect the works that we do in different ways. But yeah, it's really important to have. We're very aware we don't operate in isolation, and the collaboration can lead to all manner of new ideas for new initiatives, new projects, new funding, a new way of generating income. So yeah, it's pretty vital to what we do. I think the challenge in Edinburgh is quite specific for people who are trying to earn a living in the creative industries. So we have constantly seen the challenge to find space that people can afford to rent in a city where the property market and the property prices are so high. So that challenge is something that we took on 30 years ago, and we're still constantly having to live with. It's not going to change. So that's the main challenge. The other challenge is in a city where communities are under pressure, community centres are run down or not open all the time, or not got the finance that they used to have to run projects. So we're very aware that communities are under pressure individually, but also the whole area is affected and impacted by that. So in my view, for community wealth building, you need the public sector supported, because without that, you can't just rely on enterprise. You do need a strong public sector to support. That is a major challenge at the moment. People's finances are under huge pressure, and we want to do what we can to be part of the solution. In my view, I'm always thinking about the local economy, if you like, and thinking about where the money goes. So it's quite obvious to me that the city is very rich, but a lot of the money flows out of the city and certainly doesn't have a lot of impact on the communities within. So constantly looking at ways that, one, you can create space, which is what we're all about, where people can meet and come in and get involved in projects, but also just aware of the local economy, that if you have, well, for example, what we do is we create hubs where a lot of people come together to work in studios. They also go out and meet other people and work with other projects and buy locally. And so you're just constantly looking for networks in the local area that people can be a part of. And through that, opportunities arise, and the finance of it and the economy and how they earn a living means that the money stays within the area rather than flowing out to rich people in rich companies or shareholders, etc. So that's my interpretation of it. And as I say, I think the local state has a part of that. So you need the libraries and you need the schools which are well resourced and have after school activity, and the community centres. And we want to be kind of a part of that, whilst recognising that we're not funded directly by the state. We have another way of generating income, which is under the social enterprise model. I'm very aware that networks are really important, and they're really important for organisations, particularly when they're starting off and they want to meet with like-minded people. And we've had lots of visits to Out the Blue, and Edinburgh Social Enterprise Network has directed people to us to come and see us and have conversations and see some of the enterprise that we've set up, or even look at the building and how it's been developed. I think it's being part of a network it's like being part of the Development Trust network. We get a lot of visits through that as well. So it's basically something that we don't spend a lot of time going out to meetings, but we're very aware that people can come and have a look at the buildings, and we'll talk to them, and we'll hopefully give useful information, or they'll come and see out the blueprint, our project, and see how that operates, or they'll come and see the cafe. And also just using our services might sound simplistic, but the more organisations that use our cafe delivery service, the more traineeships we can have and the more people we can support that way. So just trading with us is really important. Even with the catering, it's great, because that's an important part of our business model for the cafes, that we have this delivery. We go off on the cargo bikes and deliver, and so to have that recognised by yourselves and a lot of other organisations in the sector use us for that. But there are, I believe there are other cafes available and who also need support. I'm now at an age when I prefer just to get involved in my locality where I live, and to get involved in everything that goes on. And I can't end this interview without saying that I'm a member of a bowls club, because I do bang on about bowls quite a lot. So local networks, local connections, I really like. And there's lots of neighbourhoods in Edinburgh that are their own particular distinction. So I think that's really important, that you get involved locally and support what's going on, and help make sure that those organisations and buildings and networks exist. For Out of the Blue in the next year, we've got a few more initiatives that we're working on. We don't do anything in a hurry. It's all very considered, and it all is working with other people in partnerships. We have important partnerships. Your viewers will have seen Abbeymount Studios and what Rob Giulianotti's doing up there. That is a really important project for us that we're hoping to see get into a next stage in the coming year, where we'll have more chance to refurbish a building and to create space that is more fit for purpose. And we have another couple of projects of that ilk, where we're looking at buildings and trying to work out ways that we can create space within them. So for me, there's that, but there's also the Drillhall, and there's also projects within the Drillhall where we've set up initiatives like the cafe and Out the Blueprint, which we want to see go to the next stage and to continue to flourish. So for me, the next year is pretty crucial. We have an opportunity to not sit still, to continue to make things happen. So Out the Blue is a very independent organisation. We went from anarchists to entrepreneurs over a period of 30 years, and we're still working away to try and create space and opportunities for the people of the local areas where we work and Edinburgh as a whole.